Welcome into this Five Clubs conversation. I'm Gary Williams. I'm going to be joined in a moment by somebody who won a national championship in college, also played in the final group of a major championship, and is somebody who holds a record on the Korn Ferry Tour that may never be broken. That person is Jason Gore. He has been with the USGA as the player advisor to the USGA and obviously the conduit to the players. Now he is taking on a senior vice president role as the player advisory to the commissioner on the PGA Tour. It's a huge opportunity, and it's a huge job for somebody who is going back to a place where he made his living. Well, I'm interested to get his thoughts on all the changes in golf, why he took the USGA job, and how quickly and why this job materialized with the PGA Tour. That's coming up right now. And with that, we welcome in a guy making a big transition from the USGA to the PGA Tour, Jason Gore. Jason, my friend, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing really well. You know, it's interesting going back and looking at you making the choice to join the USGA. And at that time, I remember seeing you at Morgan Hoffman's charity event at Arcola. And there was a level of excitement that you had about embarking on it. I want to start there. When you took that job, were there things about what it was that they wanted from you that you didn't quite understand then that you do now?
I think it was just, they wanted to get somebody who has kind of walked the walk on the tour and knows the guys, to let them know what the USGA does. I think there was just such a mystery, right? Of like, well, what do you guys even do over there? Where's all the money go? And why are we doing this and we don't ever see this? And it's like, well, like the parts that the USGA gives with, even down to green section. I don't know the hard numbers on it, but even thinking about like how many World Series and how many Super Bowls are been played on the grass the USGA helped, design and grow and flourish, down to like water conservation and everything. And it's just like the outreach of the USGA with turf grass and with championships and now, with coming up with like Team USA, I'm not sure what the official name of it is, but just bringing people into the game and just making sure, through governance too, that the game is always protected for, not just today, but from 100 years from now. And I think that was the message I was not tasked to do, but that was the message that the USGA wanted to get across to players, and to basically let them know that we're listening, like that we do care what they think. And, we're not just standing at arm's length saying, you bow to whatever we're saying. It's not like that in the USGA. It's a bunch of great people that play, that love the game and are, that play the game and live and breathe it. And, like I always laughed at when the tour players, and I'm probably guilty. I'm not going to sit there and point fingers, but how is the game governed by a bunch of amateurs? Well, they may not be as talented as the tour players are. Let's just stop there. But there's no way they don't love it as much. And that to me is the most important factor. Like, I don't care how you play. I care that you love, and I care that you respect the game. And that's what matters to me. And they do. And I'm so thankful for all of my friends in there and everything they've kind of taught me. And I'm so grateful to know what they do finally. And it's just a class organization that has the best intentions.
Jason, that whole thing about, amateurs and amateurs telling professionals, I always found that to be ridiculous, because you're an amateur golfer doesn't mean that you can't be an expert/professional at whatever it is that you might do for the USGA. And as it applies to rules officials, they're experts on the rules. It doesn't mean that they have to be elite players. I always found that to be silly, the way that people projected that, and there are a number of players who did that. Did you sense that there was a fracturing of the relationship between the elite player and the USGA in terms of the communication level?
For sure, because I mean, like I always had Jeff Hall. Jeff Hall was my Walker Cup manager in 1997. That's how long I've known this guy. And if I ever had a question or, a concern or even, an issue, I'd call Jeff and I'd get an answer. But, 99 players out of 100 probably didn't have that avenue. And, that's just kind of why I wanted to be there. And I didn't have all the answers. I get calls all the time from players be like, hey, dude, like, this happened here. And I'm like, I'm not a rules guy. And they're like, you work for the USGA? And I'm like, yes, but I know a guy. And I make a phone call to Thomas or Craig Winter or whoever, the rules experts, and I'd ask them a question, I'd get them an answer. And it's unbelievable how much I learned. Like, because I was, one of my first few weeks there, I wanted to go take the rules test. And I'm like, I want to find out how much I do know or how much I don't know. And then I come to find out the test was like 3 hours long. And I'm like, yeah, I'm busy. But like, it's just amazing all the little intricacies of the rules of golf and all the, not even intricacies, the simplicities of it. Like, you're like, wow, I didn't know you could do that. Like, and I think in the rules changes of 2019, it actually made it simpler and easier to understand, even though it's different than what, golfers don't like change. And, it's like, I want to keep my game the way it is. And so even though the rules became simpler, more like, concise, it was still difficult because it was a change. But, it's pretty amazing that there was no avenue for tour players or elite amateurs or whoever, other than just calling the USGA. And, it's like, you just put a name to a face or a face to a name, however you want to put it. And give these players an avenue of communication, and to let them know we were listening. Like, hey, listen, this is what your concern is. Let's fix it. Let's try to find a way to fix it. And if we can't fix it, you're going to get an explanation of why, and you're going to get a reason. Like, you may not like it, but these are the facts. These are the truths, and that was really it. And I think as a tour player for however many years it was, probably 5 too many. I was out there, but I could accept a no. I just wanted to know why, and I think that was the reason why, because half the time, it's like, I'm okay to admit that I'm wrong. Like, yeah, I may be out of my mind here, but I at least want to know why and give me the reasons, and maybe I'll get my arm around it. And if not, then I'm just gonna have to live with it. But I think it was just the idea of having somebody there to talk to. And that's just what I tried to do, be available.
Everyone, and again, I was guilty of this. I was thinking, gosh, he'll be the perfect guy because he's so approachable and every player will be willing to talk to him and he'll be willing to listen. But did you find a sense of responsibility to connect players to other people who are part of the organization? Like, hey, it's not just me. I think it's important for you to know this person. Did you try to open up the avenues for these top players to know people in the organization beyond just you as a player advisor? Was that something that you felt was a responsibility right away?
Most definitely. And like, I always kind of use this like very simplistic phrase in there. I just wanted to humanize the organization. Like, we weren't just a bunch of, blue blazers and bow ties with dandruff on our, on our shoulder pads, right? Like these were people that love the game. And it was one of those things where I just wanted them to know, like, hey man, we're human beings. Like, we want to listen. And sometimes the humanization factor wasn't there. And, to bring a Thomas or, a John Bodenhammer or a Jeff Hall or even a Mike Whan. Like, Mike Whan's amazing at this. And he's amazing at being a really like human being. And, not that these guys weren't, don't get me wrong, but they just didn't have the avenue to become a human being. And it's much easier. It's much more difficult to slap somebody in the face than to stab them in the back. And that's just what I wanted them to do, was like, hey, listen, like, we're trying and we care about what you think and we want to make it better, but we're not going to do it by being, with having a great chasm between us. So the closer we can work together, the better we can make it for you, because we want to be the biggest, and we want you to walk into a USGA event, whether it's a US Open, the women's senior amateur, I don't care, anywhere in there. I want these players to walk in and look around and go, wow, I made it. No matter what I've done in my career, like I've achieved something. And like that's just, I got friends here that are great players that never really, like made it, but they identify. It's like, oh, here's so-and-so, and he played in the 2015 US Open. And like, whoa, like, I mean, this is a career defining thing just to even qualify for a USGA championship. And, but they need to know that we are human beings. We are going to make mistakes, but it's not going to be for a lack of effort. And I just wanted them to kind of know that the love for the game is there. And we're going to mess up, and it's not on purpose. And we want to hear about it. We want to know how to make it better. So that was kind of our number one thing.
Jason, one of the things that happened immediately after the USGA hired you was every player, without exception, lauded the hire, said it was a home run. I know that's flattering, and it's probably humbling as well. Why do you think that was the reaction? Was it a very personal thing because they knew you, or because it was something that was really needed?
I was offering $50 per player to say that. No, I don't know. I think it's just kind of like, I've been out there a long time. I've got a lot of friends, and it's like, I think it was just knowing that they finally had somebody on their side, which is probably false. Like, I think the whole organization was on their side. And it hurt when they had a couple missteps in the previous years I got there. But I think it was just the idea of somebody on their side that can listen, they're comfortable to talk to, they're comfortable to curse in front of, like they can just be themselves, and knowing that I've been in the locker room and know that I've walked the fairway with them, and they know me on a different level than they would per se Jeff Hall or John Bodenhammer. Like, I think it was just somebody that they believed understood what they're going through, and it was just somebody they perceived that was on their side, and I was. But I wasn't the only one, and that's just somebody who I always kind of joke about this, but I speak tour, and there's a certain it's a different language, right? So somebody would be like, yeah, man, and admit, hey, you know what, we probably could do this better, or what do we do great and what can we do better? And I think they knew that I would understand what they're talking about, and if that's the case, then I'm super grateful for it. And they were great to me. They are great to me. I shouldn't say were, because I'm still here, but no, I think it was just somebody that they knew that they could trust, and knew that would listen and knew what they were talking about when they had a concern.
Do you think that the position now, in terms of who should fill it, and I'm not talking specifics, I'm not asking you to give me names, that the credentials and the background should have some similarities to the path that you've been on?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think there should be somebody who's walked the fairways of the PGA Tour, and I would honestly and I always told this to John Bodenhammer, and I said, listen, I'm going to age out of this position. Like, sooner or later, I'm not going to be the guy that walked down the fairway with him. I'm going to be the USGA guy who oh, dude, you play golf? So I'm going to age out of that position. I think trying to get somebody younger in here who is, who's walked the walk and can talk the talk, and somebody who's very patient, and maybe probably a lot more patient than I've ever been. But it's tough to when I was tasked to kind of find a lieutenant, because I was going to move over to a little bit more of the course setup side, because that's what I kind of bullied my way into, because I loved it so much. But it's tough to walk up to a young tour player and be like, hey, bud, you're not going to make it, and I'd like you to come work for me. So that was a little bit of an awkward time. I had to figure it out. But the more we looked into it, the more clear a certain somebody was, and I think you're going to see a really good announcement coming up very soon of a really well-liked person, and they're going to be great.
About a month ago, I had Johnson Wagner in studio with me, and one of the things we were talking about was that we're both sitting there going, God, I don't understand why the PGA Tour does not have a position similar to the one that the USGA has with Jason. And it wasn't just LIV, it wasn't just the turbulence that's going on right now in professional golf, but just that there is somebody that should be in that position, that has had that path, that understands it as much as the executives and the people who run the PGA Tour are inside that ecosystem. They don't know it because they haven't done it the way that you have done it or somebody else. When did this conversation with the PGA Tour and you start?
They probably started, well, actually started 4 weeks ago today. I mean, this came out of the blue. Jay called me. I've known Jay forever. And,
yeah.
I mean, we played in a pro-am at Boston in 2007. And when he was still at Fenway Sports Group,
yep.
He was trying to recruit me to come be come be one of his players when he was an agent.
Yeah.
So, and I said no. And it wasn't because of Jay. It was just because I'll give you some context to this story. Like Ralph Cross, who was my agent forever, and 2 weeks when we got our rings at Pepperdine when we won the national championship in 1997, my dad walked up to him, shook his hand, and said, "He's all yours." Like, my dad was pretty sarcastic and really darn funny. So he kind of said, "He's all yours." And 2 weeks later, my dad died of a heart attack, and I just kind of always remember that. And Ralph always kind of took me into, like, I call Ralph Dad now.
Yeah.
Dad, I need some advice. And I probably don't talk to him as much as I should, but like, he's been a huge part of this process, and I love the man. And like I'd say, I could be like, "All right, Dad, I need you." And, he's always there. But so it wasn't anything against Jay. It was just that I'm a loyal human sometimes, well, not every time, but as I'm talking to you about my job change. But yeah, I've always had great respect for Jay. I think he's just a great guy. And obviously I'm a PGA Tour guy, and he called me up and told me kind of broke it down a little bit and asked if I'd be interested. And it was the hardest decision I ever had to make. I got to be honest with you. It was, I don't even drink, right? Like, yeah. My wife and my best friend went to AA 12 years ago, and I just kind of quit with him / for him. And I walked in one night, I went to our little liquor store right here. I popped out a $100 bottle of wine, and I looked at my wife. I'm like, "Let's talk." And it was the first drink we had in like 12 years.
Wow.
And it was like, super lightweights, but it was just one of those things. It's like, all right, we need to we're going to sit down. I think we stayed up till like 4 a.m, just sipping on one bottle of wine from like 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. So, I mean, by that time it was almost bad, but it was just one of those things. Like, she's my best friend. She's a high school sweetheart.
Yep.
Like, there's nobody I trust more than her, but it was a family decision. It wasn't just about me, because if it was about me, like, we have kids that go to school here, and, we got a son that's going to graduate high school here this year. He's a rising senior, and our daughter's just getting into high school. Like, there was a lot of moving parts, and I love everybody at the USGA. I thought I'd be here till I died. And
sure.
It was tough, but coming down and listening to what's coming down the pipe and all the exciting things of what's happening with the PGA Tour, and knowing I'm a PGA Tour guy, and it just it seemed like it was the right time. It still doesn't make it easy. I mean, I got to go through phases of where I'm like, what the heck did I do? Why did I do it? I can't wait to do it. So it's there's still some things, it's like I talk to Mike Whan and John Bodenhammer all the time still. And I'm just so grateful that they're going to be friends for life. And, they could have easily said, "You know what, go away." And they didn't. And that just shows you what kind of guys they are and what kind of organization the USGA is. But that being said, I'm super excited. I cannot wait to get down there. And this is going to be a heck of an adventure.
What did Jay say to you in terms of, like, what does he need from you?
He just wants me to tell the truth. And I think that was like the one thing. Like, I am sometimes brutally honest. Maybe I don't say it at the right times, but you always know what you're going to get. And he just said there's some mistruths that are being spoken. And I want you to go explain to some of these players. And it wasn't a talk them in or talk them out of something. It was just like, just tell them the truth. And, they trust you, they like you, you've done good things for the USGA. And of course I had to say, like, well, I was just part of the team. I just happened to be there. Right. Like, that's the truth there too. And, but he's just like, I just want you to talk to them. I want, they trust you. And I said, okay. Like, that was really about it. He just wants the players to know what's going on, whether it's Rory or whether it's Peter Malnati or whoever. They want to be like, I think the transparency part of the whole thing is what's important. And it's kind of like my job to go in and speak for the players and be that direct access to Jay. And, he's a busy guy. So, it's kind of my job to kind of bring in all these suggestions, comments, questions, whatever, to Jay, and offer some advice as an ex-tour player and how to make it better. And we want to make the PGA Tour, if it's not already, by far the best place to play. And that's kind of what I'm excited about.
I was trying to think, like, what is analogous to what it is that you're getting ready to do, and it's not the NFL or the NBA or Major League Baseball, because they're unionized, and people say, well, the commissioner works for the owners in these other sports, and to a degree, the commissioner works for the players in your sport, and you're not a union boss because you're not unionized, and you work for the tour, but you're a player. So when I'm thinking about, like, what it is that you've got to be the perfect balance, creating this equilibrium between the tour office and that locker room. Is that fair?
That's fair. Yeah. I mean, I would kind of, since we're not a union, but yeah, that's a perfect analogy. I would be a union boss if players were a union. I'm making sure that the message is delivered.
Yeah.
Right. I think we don't want anything lost in translation. I mean, I'll be taking a lot of notes, and I'll be, sending a lot of, like, emails full of notes to Jay and having these conversations with him directly. I'm reporting directly to Jay, and I think that's fantastic. And I just think nothing's going to get lost in translation or slip through the cracks. I think that's kind of my job, to make sure that even the little things matter. And I'm going to be that avenue directly to the commissioner. Like I said, he's a busy guy. He's got a business to run, and there's a lot of things going on right now. And my job is to kind of is to make that happen.
By extension, with what was going on, which started, kind of building into a crescendo in the winter months with LIV, because you're with the USGA, and people are going, well, what is going to be the reaction of the governing bodies and the PGA of America as it applies to the major championships? I just wonder, when you go back to when the noise started to get very loud with LIV, what was your assessment of what was going on before any players had signed, and how viable and how plausible this whole thing was going to be? Did you think this thing was going to get off the ground when this year started?
Oh man, I don't know what I believe. I honestly, I remember being at Riviera, and just the air being so thick.
Yes.
And everybody was on edge. I kind of, my wife went to UCLA, and I always talk about, I remember her at midnight. Yeah. During finals week, everybody would open their windows at midnight and scream out the windows. And I kind of felt like that's what the players were doing at Riviera. It just felt like everybody needed to open a window and scream. The air was so thick with what was going on. And that's kind of, and then all of a sudden, Dustin says, I'm committing to the PGA Tour, and then Bryson does. And it's like, okay, wow, that was really close. And then all of a sudden you kind of felt like it was face down in the water with just a couple bubbles coming up, and boom, here it comes back again. It was but it was so, I didn't know what was going to happen. And it's kind of like Tiger Woods. You never want to put anything past the guy. Is he ever going to win the major? Well, no. Well, it's listen, I'm not going to ever underestimate that guy again. Right. I just gave you a huge word salad to tell you, I don't know. I didn't know. I was just kind of sitting there watching, and being in the USGA, all I did was get popcorn. Like, you just had to watch. Like, you really couldn't do anything. And we had a U.S. Open to worry about, and that was kind of where I was at.
As the U.S. Open approached, and everyone's going, well, gosh, the PGA is going to have to make a decision first, and then the USGA is going to be up next. Did players who were contemplating or did go to LIV, did some of them reach out directly to you to say, where is your thinking? Where is the USGA's mind at on all this?
Yeah, there was a few, but they just asked kind of what we were going to do with the Open, and that was pretty much it. I mean, I was super careful not to offer advice. Like, it's not my place, and it's like I'm kind of like under the guise of like, listen, you guys, it's your choice. It's your choice with your family. I can't offer you any advice on what to do or how to do it. I just kind of gave them the facts. It's, at that point we were going to let them play in the U.S. Open, and there was no reason to not, like, they had earned their right in to, they earned their exemption, they earned their right to play. And we weren't going to go changing the criteria because we didn't like what they were going to do. And listen, the operative word in the U.S. Open is open.
Yeah.
And we're not going to like keep anybody out who's earned their rights to play. And that was my answer. Like, I can't tell you how many times I actually said that. The operative word in our title is open. And if you've earned your right, you've earned your right. So, and that's it's obviously where we were this year. And, that was kind of the only thing I said. And I was super careful not to just sway one way or another, because
right.
That wasn't what I was supposed to, it wasn't my job. Like, I was going to answer the questions they had regarding the USGA, but it's their life. And I didn't want anybody to come back and be like, well, Gord told me to do it. And it's like, dude, I did not.
Yeah.
I was so super careful with that because, I respect the PGA Tour, I respect the USGA, and like, I respect the players, and like that was their decision.
If this big pivot with respect to the immediate future of the PGA Tour did not happen, do you think that Jay would have had the impetus to reach out to you, whether it be you or anybody else, to create this position? Because this is a big change that's getting ready to happen here.
I would hope so. I would hope so. I mean, gosh, how many tour players have actually worked for the PGA Tour, like as a staff member? I think I can only think of two others. I think Bill Calfee and Dean Beeman. But
a couple rules officials, like Dylan Pruitt. Set up guys.
Dillard.
Yep.
Rintoul. Yeah, yep. But nobody has ever been
staff. Right.
Yeah, full like executive staff. Like,
yeah.
Other than Dean and Bill, but so it's been a while. I think to put a member still, I'm still a card carrying member, a past champion, and so I think it was a big move. I think there were some players that kind of came up and said that we need somebody like that, and if they could get me, that'd be great. I guess, I don't know. That's what I've heard. I can't say everybody because I've only heard that from like two people, but I was honored that they thought of me that way, and they see the job that I've tried to do at the USGA, and they understood that I was there. Like, when my phone rang, I usually answered it unless I was on like 14 at Pine Valley, right? So, or Baltusrol or someplace like that, someplace I couldn't do it. But like, I was always open. I was open to having a conversation. I was opening to, and basically all I try to do is listen, right? I can interject my thoughts and I can interject that, but I just wanted to listen. And like, once I gathered all the facts and then I kind of gave my 2 cents. But there was a lot of times on tour where I just went to a player relations guy and just laid them out. And they're like, do you want me to do something about it? I'm like, no, I just wanted to yell at somebody and you were there. So thank you. And like, just go, I feel better. I'm going to go back to practicing. Have a nice day. Right. Like, that's just kind of, you have to understand, that's just, we're not always, it's not personal. It's just sometimes you're there and you're going to get it. And, and I'm going to appreciate it. And we're going to laugh and high five each other next time we see each other. And, it's like, I get that part, I was there. And I think that's why some of these players, trusted me, because it's like, all right, are you done? Like, can I go now? Like, you feel better? Good. Can you flush the toilet, start over, play well tomorrow? Good. Like, I kind of did that with, there's a story out there. Well, it's not really a story because it happened with Poulter and Mike Davis. In 2019, I'm 2 months into the job, and I'm like, come on, Mike, let's go walk the range. Let's go. This was my way of humanizing him, because, a lot of people just thought that, this guy's just out to ruin their day, and he wasn't.
Right.
This is a good human being. And I walked up, I'm like, come on, let's go talk to Poulter. I know you had a rough time last year with Shinnecock. Like, let's go talk to Poulter. He's like, I'll say hi, but I don't want to talk to him. I'm like, well, you're kind of not going to have a choice if you go say hi, right? This is going to happen. So he walked up, and the first thing Poulter does is put his finger in Mike's chest and starts doing this. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, at least I don't have to like pack. I can, at least I'm going to get fired quickly. And then, at the end of it, they shook hands and everything was fine. And Poulter walked into player services, and I pulled him back into my office, and I looked at him like, you feel better? He's like, well, yeah. I said, good. Go play all this week. Go flush the toilet and start over. Like, just let everything go play. It's over, right? Like, start fresh. And that was kind of what I was trying to provide them. Like, all right, get it off your chest. Let's move on. Like, what you have been perseverating on is really nothing. It's a 4-minute conversation away from just being resolved and over. And now you can just move on you can start Thursday with a clean attitude. And I'm not just doing it for the organization. I'm actually doing it for the player. Right? Like, let's clean up your attitude. Let's get it off your chest. Let's move on. And, I think that was important to them. Half the time they just wanted to be heard. And he was heard. And, like I said, they ended up shaking hands, and everything was, at least cool after that. Maybe it wasn't fine, but it was cool. Like, so that is just, it was a two-way street for sure.
Mm-hmm. Tiger, his role, I never in my lifetime did I think that he would have such an intellectual and emotional investment in USA Golf, which he does now, whether it be President's Cup, Ryder Cup, and now on the administrative side and the vision and the construct of the PGA Tour. I mean, he is all in on this. Have you communicated with him since you were announced?
I've talked to him a few times. Yeah, I mean, we've been friends since we were 13 years old, playing junior golf together. So, yeah, I've talked to him a few times. He is certainly, I think that President's Cup a few years back when he was captain, I think really kind of like started to get some juices flowing for when he realized that it was time for him to take the next step. And I mean, he's a sharp guy, and he's golf's constantly on his mind, and he loves the game. He loves the history. I mean, we all know about the Jack Nicklaus poster in his room with all of his accomplishments, and he's trying to check them off one at a time. And so we know that history matters to him. We know what legacy means to him, and I think it's oh my gosh, Mike Wan's calling me right now. There you go. But I think we all know that legacy and history matters, and it's going to be, I think he really cares about the tour, and I think he's got a vested interest in, like Charlie, right? I mean, I think Charlie wants to have Charlie kind of follow in his footsteps, and he certainly has the opportunity to do so. And you've seen his golf swing,
yeah.
So I think that means a lot to him, and I think he's going to try to use every tool in his tool belt to try to see what he can do to help the PGA Tour, and to kind of take it to put it into a proactive state and try to make it a little bit more solid and a little better.
These the idea, and it's more than an idea, it's going to happen. These elevated events, and in addition to players, the top players adding 3 other events, the major championships, and that's great. The idea of these guys getting together more often is what all fans want. But the balance of the tour, and the razor-thin edge between being out there and being on the Korn Ferry Tour, do you feel like the guys who are good enough but are not at that level, that the entry point and the opportunity to penetrate that level is going to be attainable at a reasonable level?
I would certainly hope so. You know what I mean? Like I don't want this to be. And listen, I just learned about it a couple of days ago, like you. Like
Yeah.
I'm not there in yet to
Yeah.
like get the inside scoop. So I mean, technically, I'm still a USGA employee. So I hope so. I hope there is some volatility within within that, to where you get guys fall off, guys come on based on how they're playing. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of things that need to be ironed out. You know, like how does this kind of, where are the points involved in this? Are they going to be bigger points? Are they going to be lesser points? Like I kind of think right now, just as my first instinct, I would think that they should be closer in points. So you get guys that can fall off and guys that can move up. And, you know, like, I think there should be like fresh blood in those, you know, these higher level tournaments. And, you know, and obviously the top guys are probably going to stay pretty stable. I just don't want this to be a closed shop, an old boys club kind of, so to speak. And, you know, I think it would be an opportunity for these guys to like join and, you know, kind of zipper in, mix it up a little bit. And I think it'd be great. There's so much young talent out there that, you know, I mean, I just keep thinking, like, we didn't know Cameron Young 18 months ago.
No.
We barely knew Will Zalatoris 24 months ago, or, you know, 36 months ago, whatever. But, you know, so there is this young talent that's out there. I mean, they're just getting better, younger, faster. They just, you know, like, they got all this information and they got all these things that we didn't have. And I hate using that. Like, back in my day, I hate being that guy. But you know, like, they're just smarter than we were. They're just better trained. And you know, a good young guy is probably gonna beat an aging old guy, and especially now. But I don't know. I just think that I think it's important to have that volatility, and how that's going to work out. I need to get in there and listen a lot and try to help figure, you know, see if there's a right way to do it. And you know, I'm just not there yet. So
you know, one thing, being at the U.S. Amateur last week, Jason, talking to players, it was interesting to me that most of them had PGA Tour U on their minds. Like, what do I got to do? The positioning, that transition, and being as best positioned as they could be for that next step. Is that something that maybe needs to be expanded? As far as, you know, I think it's great that a college player's accomplishments can give him an entry point on the Korn Ferry Tour. Does it maybe need to go a step higher?
I would say that, once again, like, since I'm not there, I would certainly think it would be. I think it needs to be expanded. And I mean, I'm going to give context here. I like telling these stories, but, like, I'm a Dodger fan.
Yeah.
Right. They've constantly had the best farm system, and that's why they're probably the best team in baseball. Maybe I'm biased, but you know, it's like you have to nurture this farm system to you know, to make the product better on the top end. And I would think the Korn Ferry Tour and the Latin American Tour are certainly, you know, maybe farm system's not a great word, but like the next fair step. Yeah. That's fair, right? So, yeah. You know, like, you think you have to look after those to keep this young talent, and PGA Tour University is part of that. And you know, I'd like to know, before I start like spouting off all this random garbage. I'd like to know what they're thinking first. I have some ideas. I think they really need to, like, kind of look into how do you incentivize these players to stay, and to realize that the PGA Tour is the place where they're going to leave their mark. And you know, and I certainly want to get some facts in before I kind of like start going, well, I think they should do this, and then I look like a complete moron because they already got it figured out. But which isn't hard to do. So that's just where I am. But yes, I definitely think that the PGA Tour U, Korn Ferry Tour, and Latin America Tour needs to be studied and looked at, and to see what the best avenue is to keep this young talent here and and growing and moving forward.
By the way, you may have a great farm system. That $350 million payroll doesn't hurt either. I say that as a Yankee fan. We're at about 295. No, you're right, but I do want to point that out. All right, let me get you out of here on this because
wait.
Here we go.
Who did they trade to get those guys?
I mean, which guys? Freddie Freeman?
Like Trey Turner. Well, no, we kind of stole Freddie Freeman, but that's another story. But like Trey Turner, when we had Scherzer, I mean, they're trading like young farm system guy. Anyway,
you're the home for all the mercenaries now. It used to be the Yankees. Now they go to the Dodgers. All right, let me get you out of here. Let me get you out of here with these 5 quick questions. What is the thing you're going to miss most about my home state of New Jersey?
The golf. The golf here is stupid good.
Stupid good.
Like, stupid good. I mean, there's places that are here that you never even heard of. Like, I remember seeing it the first time in Arcola, and I'm like, I never even heard of this place, right? I got there, I'm like, holy smokes, this is like a top 5, top 10 golf course I ever played. It was fantastic. And every one of them, they're like, have you played here yet? Well, no. And they're like, oh my gosh, you got to play there. I mean, I played Mountain Ridge for the Met Open a couple years ago. That place is ridiculous. And I mean, just the topography in here, and I'll miss my home club at Hamilton Farm and Baltusrol, where I've been playing a bunch lately, and it's just the golf here and the people here are awesome. Like, we live in like Gladstone, which is like a little 2,500 person town, and if the kids want to go, like, hey, go out front, it's like when we grew up, it's like come home when the streetlights come on. It's just like such a hometown feeling. Of like, I always laugh with my wife about this. I'm like, we both grew up in LA, and it's like, we hate people. We like persons, but we hate people. It's like, I understand what my dad was saying when he like hate going to Disneyland. And you look at me and he goes, son, just remember this. There's no such thing as fun for the whole family. And I just kind of thought that was funny because it's like, I didn't know what he was talking about. I'm like, Dad, how are you not having fun? And now I get it. Like, just, we love it here. This was going to be our home forever. And like, I'm sitting right here right now and like looking out, and we have 4 acres, and it's on the corner lot, all the way at the end, nobody behind us. And it's like, gosh, I'm gonna miss this. And kind of the point where like, well, do we become those people who summer in New Jersey and winter in Florida? It's like I didn't know winter was a verb, but it's we're gonna miss the golf and the people, and just we love New Jersey.
Yeah, it's the little towns. You go from town to town. You can cross into 4 different towns in 10 minutes. They all have their own little history, their own little identity. It's a neat place. There's no doubt. All right, the best player you saw in all your years on the Korn Ferry Tour that never made it for whatever reason. Who's a guy who was really good and it just didn't happen?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. I would have to probably say my old college teammate, Mike Walton. We called him Cadillac. I mean, the guy was like so smooth. He was just, I mean, I known him he was from Palm Desert, and just the guy did everything good. And we went to Q school our first year, and I think in '97 he got full status, and I'm like, oh dude, you're gonna just kill it. Like, I mean, the guy never missed the center of the club face, and it's just I don't know what happened. Like, he just kind of, his biorhythms didn't play well at the right time to get his tour card, and like he'd play well early in the year. Like he was a fall guy, or he was a spring guy. I was a fall guy, right? Like I probably had half the talent, but I always seemed to play well right around Q school. Like towards the end of the year, and that does matter. I don't may sound asinine, but it's true. Like, but yeah, he was. I don't know how he made it. He was one of the greatest chippers I ever saw. He was a good enough putter. Like, he wasn't a bad putter, but he was good enough, and just drove it 310 down the middle of every fairway, and his irons made that special sound. Like, you hear guys like, hit it, and you're like, well, that's different. And
yes,
that was probably the guy. Just, you sit there and you scratch your head. You're like, I don't know how.
All right. The last time you thought you could still play for a living?
Yesterday. Yesterday. I mean, it's like, I had back surgery in 2020, and I just kind of think about it. You know, like I've got some speed back. I'm a kind of like a mid to high 170s ball speed guy. So I guess I still got it. And but I know enough to know enough. Like it's over. Like I actually said this to a couple of guys. Like I got into 3M a month ago. I'm like,
Yeah.
listen, I should never play in another PGA tournament. I made that choice to like do something else. I'm 48. You know, I turned 48 in May. I mean, it's over. It's fine, and I'm totally good with that. But like, and there's a guy that plays at Hamilton Farm, who's probably late 60s, early 70s, and he practices like crazy. And I'm like, Kenny, like you practice a lot. He goes, I just want to suck slower. And I'm like, okay, like that's a very elegant way to put it. Like that's where I am. I'm afraid to like shoot 80 and be happy. Like I still love the game. I still tend to like every day I wake up and I kind of feel like, how am I going to get better today? And you know, now instead of practicing, maybe the way I'm going to get better is by not touching the club for 2 weeks and letting whatever this pile of junk is like rest and relax and you know. So I still think about it. I still take lessons. I still like when I go to California, I still work with Dana there, and you know, it's called Drew Steckel all the time. Like I want to learn. I want to be better, and I'm still just absolutely in love with the game. And you know, like this was part of the hard thing with, you know, going to the PGA Tour was kind of maybe had to give up my Champions Tour dream, and I'm okay with that. Like I had a chance, I did it, I gave it my all, and you know, like I'm good, I'm happy, I'm happy being home, I'm happy like being more available. I'm you know, it's just trying to not be being a professional golfer is selfish. It really is, and you know, it's like all of a sudden now I look up and now our son's going to be 18 next month, and it's like, what happened? And
Yeah.
so yeah, I'm good. I still think I can, but I know I can't. You know what I mean? Like I still kind of keep that hope of like, you know, like, and I know I still got it. I had a buddy of mine who walked up to on the first tee and said to me the other day, he goes, "You're going down." And I said, "Am I?" And I threw 63 at him. And I walked over to him, shook his hand, and this goes back to your Harold Varner about me, you know, talking smack when Harold said I was a great smack talker. And I said, hey, buddy, like if you were that good, they'd pay you. And then that was it. I shook his hand and left. Like, you know, and he's a top amateur. Like it's you know, it was Mark Costanza actually who finished runner up. Yeah, like great guy. I mean, do you want to talk about just the best guy ever to be around? And you know, he just started talking smack on the first tee, and I'm like, all right, bud, I'm gonna engage today. And they shot 63 on him and shook his hand and said, yeah, man, if you were that good, they'd pay you.
That is fantastic. All right, what is the greatest shot you've ever seen in person?
Oh man, probably the one that left the biggest mark, and this was back when Tiger was still playing at Riviera.
Yeah.
And I was one of those guys that stood on the first tee, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to play with Tiger today. So I got there at like 5:45, and I'm waiting for him, and he shows up, and we get to 12, and he hits this 6-iron into, what was it, 10, 11, 12, 13, and it made this sound. And as you can tell, I'm a big audio guy. Like,
yeah.
He hit this he made this sound, and this ball took off, and he barely just clipped the grass on that Kikuyu grass and just took off on this pattern, like this trajectory. And I just looked at him and went like, yeah, I'm never gonna hit that. Like I don't have that. And it went up there to like this far, and I just looked at him and I just shook my head, and I'm like, it was at that point I'm like, I can't beat this guy. And he did that all the time. And like it was just the ball had purpose. It was like a 2-yard draw to a front left pin. I mean, like if you ever just imagine like this is the last shot I ever want to hit in my life.
Yes.
And it was in a practice round.
Right, right.
Anything like it was just, that's the one I just stick out like, yeah, I'm never gonna beat this guy. And it was special. Just it's one that rings through your bones. But yeah,
I love that. I love that term. It had purpose. I remember when Azinger played with him in '97 at the Masters, and he said, you know, the contact has such integrity. Like there's nothing compromising at all about contact. All right, last thing, the TV show you watch that is embarrassing to admit.
Well, we've already talked about the Dodger games. Is it embarrassing to say I will stay up to about 1 o'clock in the morning?
No, God, I respect the hell out of that.
We don't really watch TVs. I mean, that's the thing is like I if I had half a brain, which I don't, I would just not read scores, and I'd come home at 5 o'clock and watch the previous night's game, because on the East Coast they start at 10.
Yeah, it's rough.
10. It's rough, but darn it, I mean, I do it. I stay up and watch every one of them, and come home, take a nap until the Dodger game. Like just wake up at 7, so I'm like get about 5-6 hours of sleep. Wake up, come home, like pass out on the couch for just a smidge, and then watch the Dodger game. Like I'm a baseball guy. Like I love like the little unwritten rules in baseball, and it's kind of gotten away from it. Like I grew up like watching Nolan Ryan or Clemens or something where they would throw at their mom if she crowded the plate. If you made a bat flip, you were getting one in the ear hole next time you're up. And like I loved that part of it. It's kind of gone away, but it's like the one piece that I still have with my dad. Like I remember going to Dodger Stadium and bringing the transistor radio, and I think that's why Vin Scully's passing was like, oh man, like just one little piece of your childhood that's gone, And we used to go there, and all you'd hear is the transistor radios throughout the stadium, and it was like those moments were super special, and like I think it's just like a little piece of like kind of hanging out with my dad. I mean, that guy was awesome, and lost him way too young, but it was like that, just one little piece, because I know that's what he'd be doing. So there I am, I don't know if he'd be doing it on the East Coast, but he'd be doing it on the West Coast, and sitting down and watching the Dodger game or listening to the Dodger game. And half the time I'll even listen to it. I'll just sit in bed and listen to Charlie Steiner and Rick Monday, just and it's I don't know what it is. I'm just a maniac, but I just love it.
Well, listen, I really value the time. I appreciate you doing this. Very happy for you. I'm very excited to hear your thoughts as you progress on what you need to do and what you want to do, and what you're hearing from these players. And I love how you use Peter Malnati. He's always the guy. It's like Rory and then the rank and file. Peter's like the perfect guy to mention. He's like he is Mr. Rank and File.
And he's such a great guy.
Yes, he is.
I brought him up because I know he's on the pack, and I know he's got a big voice, and he's just a great guy to represent, because he's not afraid, and like that's what the tour kind of needs. Like, hey, I'm here too, but I wasn't picking on him. I was actually trying to pay him a compliment.
Oh, I know you were. Thanks again.
Thanks, Gary. It's been an honor to be on the show.
Well, really appreciate Jason taking the time. I think it's going to be very interesting as he progresses and as soon as he starts, because so much is changing on the PGA Tour. And I'm guessing he's going to have more conversations with the rank and file guys, knowing the uncertainty of how much they're going to get into these elite events as the tour kind of makes this big change between those events and the rest of the events. And we don't even know what it's all going to look like, but I really appreciate his time, and most importantly, we appreciate your time. We'll see you next time on this Five Clubs Conversation.